My name is Ryan Callaghan. I'm going to show you how to locate and make a French cut rib roast using a whitetail deer. So your French cut roast is your loin and ribs. On this whitetail, I've already removed the shoulder. So the first thing I need to do is pull away some of the fascia on the ribs, and it's going to make everything more clear as far as what my next cuts are going to be. And it's going to make a cleaner, prettier presentation, which is really what you're going for when you're making a French cut roast. Your French cut roast isn't going to add a whole lot of meat or anything like that. You're not going to lose something by not making a French cut roast, but what you're going to gain is a really pretty presentation. So now I have my portions of ribs. This is all edible rib with plenty of meat on it, but I'm going to come down to about here. I'm going to make a little guide cut, just barely scoring the tops of my ribs with the tip of the knife. And then down here, I'm going to make another one. And this is just going to be my guide for the saw. But this part down here is going to be the breast. This right here is going to be baby back ribs or riblets down in this section. And then this is going to be like my nice looking portion of rib for the barbecue. And then this will be my nice looking portion of rib for this French cut. But I'm going to give us a little starter hole here. This blade is just a stainless blade that has the teeth reversed on it. You can see my line right here where the neck is, and I popped 4 ribs. I'm going to leave this one until the very end. So that's just a nice little rib rack. Folks I'm around don't care about the jaggedness of those bones. So now here is the French cut roast starting to get exposed. You can see the base of the neck here. The real loin starts right here. Got a little trauma down here you don't have to worry about. And you can see the ribs starting to stand up a little bit. So now I'm just going to slice the fin bones back here, which is just the tallest part of our spine. And then I'm going to find that top of spine. And it's nice having a flexible knife as you come down this spine. So that's why this meat crafter blade's got a decent amount of flex in there. So there's my loin that's separated off this big fin bone. And for the purposes of the French cut, I will come in and we'll pop each of these ribs off just by feeling in there gently. And this really isn't gonna dull anything, but there's just a little bit of sinew. Just gently, with a little back and forth motion, and then a little bit of pressure on your ribs, and they're going to separate from the spine. You can see they're starting to separate right there. So your French cut, this is all going to get trimmed off now. You're going to expose these bones and get them as clean as possible for that nice presentation. So I'm going to move this and we'll start trimming this up. All right, so now we have what is actually, it's very tiny, but it's actually what would be a 5, maybe even 6 bone rib roast. This is your French cut. You can see this really defined sinew line right here. We're gonna come down gently to the bones, and we can scrape away. You can see our ribs starting to get exposed. This is the part that is optional. It's like if you're really doing this, it's for Christmas or fancy date night or something, and you want to take the time to kind of come in here, get in tight on these bones, and really clean them up. So that's the start of it. You can see how that's going to come together. And then you're just going to keep cleaning until you have a really pretty product. That's what's nice about the Meat Crafter, is it's got a lot of blade. Obviously I've been working the heck out of the tip on these little bones, and it's just a smaller deer too, so you're gonna use less blade. But then I have all of this, and I can use that when I get in here and fillet off silver skin and all that good stuff. And you can score these bones, get that membrane off, and then you're gonna get in there and just peel and clean as best you can. Like a real fancy French cut, these bones are gonna look white in contrast to your red meat. And then you'll come in, you'll make your ends look really nice and uniform. That would be a ribeye steak. The last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim up this chunk of silver skin here. So what I'm gonna use, just the tip of this Meat Crafter. I'm gonna free up a little chunk of silver skin. Then I'm just gonna peel it back, and not to tear my roast. And again, this is why you wanna have some flex in your blade. You can feel what's going on here. I'm not cutting, I'm just really just pushing or prying this nice loin meat off the silver skin. And then, now it doesn't look like there's a big chewy chunk of meat on there. To finish this, if you want to get real fancy, you'd take some butcher twine and you'd wrap all this up. All right, so this is your French cut rib roast. The reason that you do this is to make it look pretty. You know, for folks that eat a lot of wild game, if you're entertaining people that don't eat a lot of wild game, you're turning a wild chunk of meat into a very familiar chunk of meat. So really white bones, you have a beautifully tied up, tight little rib roast. It looks like you know what you're doing. To get your Meat Crafter by Benchmade, go to themeateater.com, benchmade.com, or go into your local Shield store.